Hello friends, Julia here. Thank you for joining me. Today I'm creating an underwater scene in my small Dylusions journal. I have collected Lawn Fawn's mini stamp sets on second hand, and now I have enough for a couple of art journal pages. I have my journal in my spray box and put printer paper behind my spread to protect my other pages. And then I bring out a few different spray inks. I'm using both Distress Oxide Sprays, which have that chalky finish, and I'm mixing them with Dylusions ink sprays, which are more vibrant colors, to create texture and contrasts. I spray my pages with water before I spray my first color Tumbled Glass, followed by Peacoc Feathers and chipped Saphire, and then I spray Dilution sprays in Calypso Teal and After Midnight. To darken the edges of my pages, I use Distress crayons in black soot that my friend Linda gave me. The crayons are a creamy pigment stick, so I scribble it on my edges and drag the color out with my fingers to get a seamless dark border. So what do you do when you love your background? You leave it alone, and I work on the water plants instead. Here I have made up and drawn a few water plants, and I will color them with my Ohuhu alcohol markers. I start with 3 shades of pink. I color the whole plant in my lightest pink before I use my medium shade to mark out where I want my shadows. Then I darken the shadows with my darkest pink before I blend it all out with my lightest shade again. For the 2 remaining water plants, I use a light yellowish green as my base color, a medium and a dark green to create shadows and depth. I usually put my shadows where the plants curve or cross each other, and I made these plants up, but if you feel unsure, you can always Google water plants or use a stamp set. There are many ways to do it, even if you don't like to draw. I do the same for all my plants. I go from light to dark and back again. Here are all the Lawn Fawn mini stamp sets that I found on second hand, but many of them have not been used. I stamped my first batch of sea creatures in Memento Tuxedo black ink because I want to use my alcohol markers, and off camera I stamped them all again with archival black ink if I should feel like watercoloring as well. When I color these creatures, I use 3 shades of the same color for each creature, like the shark, where I use 3 shades of grayish blue. And for the belly, I use 2 light gray markers. For the adorable seahorses, I use 3 shades of turquoise, and I repeat my process of going from light to dark and back again. Then it's time for the jellyfish, and I use 3 shades of green. I don't know if they even have a color in real life, but on my pages they do. And for the starfish, I use 3 yellow markers, repeating my process once again. For the octopus, I use 3 purple markers, and when I want a highlight, I often leave a white space and only color over it with my last light shade. Here are all my sea creatures, but as I said before, I stamped another batch of creatures in waterproof ink, and I color the next batch with my Arteza Real Brush watercolor markers. I chose 3 of each color and do the same process, except I now and again use a wet brush to blend the colors together. I color my jellyfish in green again and the seahorses in turquoise. I even colored a 3rd batch of the small creatures to give me options, but I thought this video had enough coloring, so I left that out. For the narwhal, I used 3 shades of grey and 2 of the purple markers for his scarf. Remember I said I was going to leave my background alone because it was just how I wanted it. Well, I'm going to alter it just a tiny bit. I used the air bubbles that came in the stamp sets. I put 1 on each side of an acrylic block. Then I used my anti-static bag to get rid of any tackiness and stamp the air bubbles in Versamark embossing ink and cover the bubbles in Wow vanilla white embossing powder. I do that process a few times, trying to position the bubbles over where my sea creatures will go, and when I have enough bubbles, I use my heat tool to melt the white embossing powder. Since I'm not going to do anything more to my background, I start gluing down my water plants. For my sea creatures, I opted to use foam squares to pop them up, and when I have put foam squares behind every creature, I use liquid glue as well to make sure my creatures stay put. I glue down my starfish, octopus, shark, narwhal and seahorses until my background is filled with cute, happy sea creatures. I often struggle with a sentiment, and this time I chose a pun saying, "Seize the day." I have it heat embossed in white on black cardstock and use the white gel pen to frame the words before I glue them down. And with that, my Lawn Fawn Under the Sea art journaling pages are finished. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you will come back soon again, because next up is a bigger project. Until the next time, see you soon.